So we've just had Apple's Far Out event where we've just seen the brand new iPhone 14 models. And in this video today, I want to do an iPhone 13 Pro Max versus the iPhone 14 Pro Max review of specs and show you what the difference is of what you'll be getting with the iPhone 14 Pro Max over the likes of, say, the iPhone 13 Pro Max. And without further ado, let's get started. So this year we do have some big changes with the iPhone 14 Pro Max over the iPhone 13 Pro Max. So on the left we have the iPhone 13 Pro Max and on the right we have the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So let's start this comparison. To start with, we have the display types. The display type has not changed now for a good few generations. We have an OLED display for both the 13 Pro Max and also the 14 Pro Max. No changes there whatsoever. However, the OLED display on the 14 Pro Max is a lot brighter and it will output up to 2,000 nits, which is absolutely incredible. And whereas the iPhone 13 Pro Max, I believe, could only go up to 1,500 nits. So you will definitely get a brighter display on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Next of all, we actually got the screen sizes, being that the iPhone 12 Pro Max all the way to the 14 Pro Max are basically being the same model design. There's no change here on screen size whatsoever. However, the Apple have claimed that the actual edge-to-edge display is actually a little bit smaller on the 14 Pro Max, but the overall size of the actual screen hasn't changed at all, so not quite sure how Apple have actually accomplished this, but it is a 6.68 inch on both of these models. The screen resolution on this, there is 16:9 on both, and then obviously that resolution is 2778 by 1484 on both of the models, completely identical. Moving on though, for pixels per inch, again it's exactly the same, 458 pixels per inch or PPI, and again that is really super crystal clear on both of these iPhones. Next of all, we do have the display refresh rate, and both of these iPhones now have the ProMotion display. However, the iPhone 14 Pro Max actually now goes down to 1 Hz to 120 Hz, whereas the iPhone 13 Pro Max goes down to 10 Hz and all the way up to 120 Hz. After this, we have the actual display protection, and so we have the ceramic shield on both of these iPhones, what gives that overall protection. It's really strong, like Gorilla Glass, the top Gorilla Glass out there. So yeah, you shouldn't really get any sort of smashed screens. You might get the occasional little scratch on the phone, but generally the screen is really tough. Then after this, the actual processor and CPU, and things have changed here. So with the iPhone 13 Pro Max, we've got the A15 Bionic chipset on that, and that was made on a 5nm die, and that consisted of 4 efficiency cores, 2 performance cores, and also at the same time had a 5-core GPU. But the A16 Bionic is actually made on a 4nm process, so this basically means transistors are smaller, the chip is actually more efficient, and because of this they managed to basically keep the same amount of cores. So again, this is the same sort of 4 efficiency core, 2 performance cores, and also we have the 5 GPU cores, but generally speaking this actual A16 chipset is more powerful yet more efficient than we got with the A15 Bionic. Then we actually got the RAM amounts, and they are actually 6GB of RAM on both of these iPhones. But there is a big difference here. The iPhone 13 Pro Max uses the older LPDDR4X RAM, whereas the iPhone 14 Pro Max uses the brand new LPDDR5 RAM instead. Then we've got storage amounts. There's no differences here. It starts at 128GB and goes all the way up to 1TB, and this is for both the iPhones, and good old sort of iPhone standards, there is no expansional storage. There's only abilities to store things in the cloud, for example. Next, we have the operating system. Now, both of these iPhones do run on iOS 16. However, the 14 Pro Max uses more iOS 16 features, or it's got more features. For example, it's got that always-on display, and the main reason behind that is because it can go down to 1 Hz refresh rate now. And also it's got car crash detection, for example, and also it has the ability to do notification using that dynamic island that we have seen as well. Then we have the battery size, and don't be thrown off by this. The iPhone 13 Pro Max has a 4,352 milliamp battery, whereas the iPhone 14 Pro Max actually has a 4,323 milliamp battery, what is 0.6% smaller. But you've got to remember, we have the A16 chipset inside the 14 Pro Max was even more efficient than the A15 chipset, and it was definitely going to be more than 0.6% more efficient. It's probably going to be more like around about 8 to 10% more efficient. So technically speaking, the iPhone 14 Pro Max will give you longer battery life, even though the battery is ever so slightly smaller than what we got inside the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Then we have the actual wired and wireless charging. Nothing really has changed here at all. We still have the lightning port, and this is 20 watts, and we also can have wireless MagSafe charging, what again is 15 watts. There is no difference here in charging abilities and charging speeds. Then the actual weight, the iPhone 13 Pro Max comes in at 240 grams. And then the actual iPhone 14 Pro Max, even though it has bigger lenses, inside it a bigger sensor, and the camera is a little bit bigger as well, funny enough, it actually weighs exactly the same as the iPhone 13 Pro Max at 240 grams. Then after that, we've got water resistance. Water resistance is exactly the same on both of these phones. They're IP68, and this allows your iPhone 13 Pro Max or the 14 Pro Max to go up to 6 meters in clear water up to 30 minutes, being rescued without any sort of permanent damage going onto the actual iPhone. Ports wise this year, we've got the iPhone's normal lightning port, and this is the same across both the iPhones, no difference there. And again, there is no headphone jack. That has gone now completely, and that's why we have those new AirPods as well. Stereo speakers are available on both of these iPhones. The actual speakers should be around about the same. There's no differences this time. And then we've got 5G on both of these iPhones, and we do have Wave on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, but we also on the iPhone 14 Pro Max have a brand new 10 gigabyte modem inside it. So if the actual antennas or the actual cellular towers allow this to happen, you should even get a faster 5G connection where that is available. For Bluetooth, the technology hasn't changed. It's Bluetooth 5.0 for both the iPhone 13 Pro Max and the 14 Pro Max. And then the rear cameras, this is where things have changed. We do have still a triple lens camera setup, but on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, we have 12 megapixel sensors on the wide, ultra wide and the telephoto, and this allows us to record up to 4K video, and we also have the LiDAR. But we do have that brand new larger sensor on the iPhone 14 Pro Max for the wide sensor, the lens, what's 48 megapixel now. But we also do have a refreshed 12 megapixel in the ultra wide and the telephoto, what lets in even more light, and we can also do 4K video recording on this, and it also has that LiDAR sensor too. Then for actual rear camera features, most of these are exactly the same, where we can do our digital zoom and things like this. However, the optical zoom on the actual iPhone 14 Pro Max, you do actually have the ability now to do 2 times and 3 times optical zoom, and also the cinematic mode now on the 14 Pro Max is 30 frames per second. Everything else like night mode, deep fusion, smart HDR3, Apple Pro RAW, Apple Pro Res is available on both of these iPhones. The selfie camera has also changed a little bit as well. We actually have a much more sharper camera on the actual iPhone 14 Pro Max. It is still a 12 megapixel one. The aperture is better, but it also allows you to do autofocus for the first time on a selfie camera on the single lens on the front of an iPhone. Last of all, we've got the price on the iPhones. Now, the iPhone 13 Pro Max is no longer available to buy from Apple direct, but other people out there are still selling it at $1,099 US, or sometimes you can get it at a sale price, and that is a good deal if you can get it cheaper. But because Apple has stopped selling this, I do have to display it as $1,099 US, and the iPhone 14 Pro Max has actually come out at the exact same price a year later at $1,099 US. Then next of all, we do actually have the colours. Now the colours again have changed. We do have on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, we have the silver, graphite, gold and Sierra blue. And we've got 4 colours for the 14 Pro Max. And again, that is silver. We have a space black, which is a little bit different to the graphite. We have gold again. And we also do have that brand new deep purple, what you've seen here in the sort of demo of these specs here. So with that in mind, what iPhone model will you be buying? So as you can see, there's lots of enhancements on the iPhone 14 Pro Max over like we've got on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. We have those better camera lenses now and the bigger sensor. We also have that brand new display on the front as well, and there's loads of other features. However, the iPhone 13 Pro Max is still a fantastic phone, and if you can get a really good deal on it, I'd still recommend getting yourself one right now. However, for everybody else, if you do want to get yourself an iPhone 14 Pro Max, I do really hope that this video has helped you out. And on that note, guys, it's time to wrap up this video. So if you have enjoyed watching it, please do press the like button, and also at the same time as well, if you want to hear the latest Apple news, reviews like this one and many more to come, and comparisons, please make sure that you subscribe to this channel and also hit that notification bell. Until next time, guys, what won't be that far away, I will see you really soon. Bye bye.